Hello and happy Tuesday. I hope everybody has had a great start to the week. I know I posted a little snippet of some statistics regarding waiting until marriage. And I know I've made another episode about this before, but I didn't really have that many facts associated with it and I didn't have that much research behind it. So I wanted to take it upon myself to kind of do a little bit more research about, one, where this all came from, and two, how it affects us today, I know a lot of us hear a lot of different points of view on the purity culture. And, there's a very distinct line drawn between those who believe women are of less value when sexually active and those who believe that sex for a woman is very liberating. So, and that it shouldn't be shamed, right? Like I posted in on Instagram, the study completed in 2002 examined a large group of people of different demographics and, basically showed that almost all Americans have sex prior to marriage. It showed that by age 20, about 77% of the respondents had sex, 75% were premarital, and the other 12% had been married. And by age 44, 95% of the respondents, 94% being women and 96% being men, had premarital sex. Even those who had abstained up until at least the age of 20, 81% of them had premarital sex, all by the age of 44. I'm not saying that, okay, you have to stay a virgin forever, right? But there are some people that believe that. There are some groups that really believe in that agenda, right? Because your worth is therefore halved or not as whole once you have sex, especially if it's premarital. It could be said the push for the purity culture agenda could be to prevent unwanted pregnancy or sexually transmitted diseases. And that's kind of where the PMC PubMed study, described, that the push for abstinence was based off of avoiding unwanted pregnancy and STIs. And I could believe that, sure, why not? I could believe that if it had an equal backing for men and women. But we have to understand that with these studies, they're not usually, the people that are reading these studies aren't usually taking this with, oh, I want to prevent unwanted pregnancy or STIs. No. They're thinking like, see, look, you know what I mean? So that the funny little study that I ran into, because when you go down this loophole of purity culture, and I urge anybody that's interested in this shit to go ahead and just take a dive, right? I ran into another little study, and this I don't really think was a controlled study or a very accurate study, but it was procured from a website called waitingtillmarriage.org, and it stated that around 40% of men wait until marriage to have sex, and 60% of women wait, right? Which, I mean, it doesn't say whether or not this statistic of men and women are religious, what their race is, which their heritage is, nothing. It just says like this is what it is, right? And that's what it's important to get all of that information when it comes to looking at statistics, because it plays a role in how the statistic overall will result, right? If you're looking at Americans versus people that are not based in America, people that were born with heavy religious backgrounds versus people that were not. All of those things make a difference in the result of the statistic, right? And, more so, they continued to say that, women that waited tend to reap more benefits of a successful marriage. Whether or not that's true, I mean, I can't really say, right? I don't know. I don't know. But I suppose overall we really have to hunker down and look at this, statistically women are more likely to initiate divorce. Yes, that is true. I looked at a lot of different statistics, and it is true that statistically women are more likely to initiate divorce. And they're saying that it's mainly women who are sexually experienced versus women who are not. So women that had multiple sexual partners prior to getting married versus women who waited until they got married and had sex. The women that were sexually experienced were shown to more often initiate divorce. And it begs a more important question to me: if an experienced partner overall, despite gender, if an experienced partner, so that means that a person that has been in multiple relationships prior to their current marriage, is more likely to leave a relationship where their needs overall are not being met by the partner despite strenuous efforts. So I digress. How can we as men and women actually move towards a healthier dynamic in relationships to ensure longevity? How can we as people cultivate healthier relationships with other people? I really do believe that it begins with yourself, for one, and how you treat yourself. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she had made the comment, I'm a single mom, so I'm considered low-hanging fruit. And I stopped her. I was like, nah, shashamba, shut up. I was like, that's not true. Your value as a person and as a human, and the intelligence and love and compassion you bring to the table, does not and will not ever be negated by the fact that you have a child. That negative self-talk, even as a joke, really can and does affect us, you as a person. It affects your person. It depends, obviously, how long and how often we do it, but, changing that narrative for yourself and not feeding into the negative outlook of, well, it didn't work out in this relationship with this person, but I had sex with him or her, or I had a baby with him or her, so I'm of less value in future. Wrong. It's not correct. I really do not believe that to be true. With every experience that we have, we grow. And no one really plans to be a single parent unless it's, a surrogate situation. And even then, there's judgment placed on people for that choice as well. In fact, again, here's another study for you. It was published in 2019 by PubMed, Medline, Scopus, and a bunch of other entities, and they conducted 6 eligible studies, including about 1,300 infertile women. Of these, 559 women agreed with surrogacy and 742 disagreed with surrogacy, respectively. Around 39%, to be precise, agreed with surrogacy as an option for reproduction. And, it's not, surrogacy in and of itself is not publicly desired as an option. And nor is it really, it's not really accepted that much. So, we're going back to the damned if you do, damned if you don't. Either way, it's important to look at yourself and your past choices with a certain level of discernment. Think about it. Are you judging yourself harshly to avoid the overwhelming feeling of external judgment? Or are you judging yourself based on, the fact that you genuinely find fault in your actions? Really take a moment to decipher which it is. As people, and I always say this, the right choice will be different for all of us. Lots of sex or no sex, pregnancy or no pregnancy, traditional or non-traditional. The list goes on, and there will always be 2 sides as long as we continue to draw lines. Choosing what's right for you and maintaining a neutral view of your actions will always allow you to choose the best option for yourself. Most people don't seem to believe this when I tell them, but I'm very much neutral in my views. If something makes sense to me, why not switch over to the from my prior thought process, especially if I gain more valuable insight on the topic and agree more with the pros than with the cons. Funny enough, though, and making a little U-turn to advise more and give you guys more information about where the purity culture stemmed from, the movement actually began in the 19th century, and it was part of that moral reformation movement. It holds down right next to the radical utopianism, abolitionism, I don't know. Don't at me. And the temperance movement. All of these concepts are examples of extreme social pressures to abstain or succumb to a certain frame of thinking, when we as humans have a natural inclination to explore, question, and evolve. And a thesis by Christy Lynn Ailman entitled The Performative of Purity, Evangelical Sexual Purity as a Mechanism of Misogyny. She defines the ideas of purity and impurity based on this purity culture that began mainly as a descriptive system of sexuality within Christianity, and additionally as a system for the journey of women for evangelicals. She explained how, to her, purity was something identifying for you as a young woman in Christianity, and additionally what she should be, right? The purity more or less demonstrated an objective truth in her eyes about her body and therefore attributed a certain level of value. She stated that sexual purity and moral purity are a woman's greatest treasure in the eyes of God and man. That is how she was brought up. Even those who don't prescribe to religious texts or have religious backgrounds or even fucking go to church, ironically enough, hold this thought process, which I find quite interesting. How is it that a thought process this extreme and frankly ancient still holds power in 2023? It shows that a lot of us don't really focus on that which we find true, but what others tell us to be true based on popular or common opinion. Would it be surprising to any of you to let you know that according to a Pew Research Center analysis of data and the U.S. Census Bureau, that in 1850, about 63% of the U.S. population identified as Christian. 63%. Now, if I were to break that down to numbers, to big people numbers, the U.S. population, right, 331 million. If we were to break that up into 63%, about 207 million people. So think about that today. 331 million people, 207 million of those people are Christian and prescribe to Christianity. That's a whole lot of fucking people. More specifically, a whole lot of people who raised even more people with the caring ideology of purity that we see obsessing the minds of young people even today is what's amazing. You know, we have to look at that. You know, if back in the 1850s, that large of a percentage was Christian, right? Let's just say that 63% were devoutly Christian and believed in Christian ideologies. They raised a generation who raised another generation who raised another generation. And some of those very, very specific and sometimes traumatizing, you know, kind of behavioral reforms of, you know, guilt and value of worth that can really carry on generationally, right? And that's what's amazing, because we're seeing even today that pushback in a very extreme way, and it's having an equally opposing force, right? So when one force pushes back, we see an opposing pushback. So you see, like with the platform of OnlyFans, the OnlyFans platform, right? Which makes it easier for adult entertainers to become adult entertainers without actually having to, you know, it gives the adult entertainers more control and less of a middleman, right? Because in industries like Playboy and just the generalized porn industry, you're very much at the mercy of male producers. The idea of sex is very commercialized now and openly promoted, which I don't think is a bad thing. You know, take it as you want it. You know, you have to watch your own children and make sure you properly educate them on sex, right? But, you know, with that, you know, kind of pushback with the openly promoted and somewhat commercialized sex industry, you see an equally opposing movement, right, with people like Just Pearly Things or Andrew Tate, right, where there's more hardcore ideas of misogyny and the purity culture that, you know, heavily weighs solely on the female's value associated with sex. And it's not equal, but that's how it's always been, especially culturally in Christian culture, especially in the 19th century. You know, way back since women were fucking there, right? The oldest known profession is prostitution, right? That's no coincidence when it comes to how man sees woman and how the value of sex was created, right? You know, I don't believe women or men to be considered, less viable of a partner based on their body count, or if they do porn, if they don't do porn. I feel like I'd probably feel a little bit peanut butter and jealous if everyone got to see my man's cucumber for $4.99 a month. But as it stands, I wouldn't see him as less viable of a candidate, because that jealousy can stem from a lot of things, right? It can stem from insecurity or nervousness that he might find a better partner because he's exposed to a larger pool of women, hence a larger pool of possible compatible parties, right? And that's something that's work that I have to do on my own, right? If you have security in your relationship and you trust your partner, those insecurities more or less resolve themselves. We have to understand here the bigger picture of things. We can't even begin to hope for a whole community of humans to suddenly change the way they think when this has been quite a number of years, that this type of culture has been created, right? But what we can do is put easily accessible information for people who simply don't know because they weren't raised in communities where that information was shared with them by their trusted caregivers is very important. I'm gonna wrap up this episode, and thank you for tuning in and giving my episode a play. Whether you got this far or not, I appreciate you. I'm going to leave you on a positive note because I feel like that's necessary. You are valuable and worthy no matter what you have or have not done in your life. Your worth is not determined by your purity or lack thereof, but rather your unique qualities, talents, and character. You are worthy of love, respect, and compassion, regardless of any mistakes or choices you may have made. You are not defined by your past, but rather your ability to learn and to grow and to become a better person. I want you all to embrace your imperfections and know that they are a natural part of the human experience. You are worthy of love and acceptance just as you are. I love you so much, guys. Bye-bye now.
They all plastic. I ain't caught up in the fashion. Cut the small talk. Only tell me where the cash is. Get smoked, dump the ashes. Only lead roll. You a motherfucker standing light flex. I just got neck in the Civic. 808 bump that buzz through the city. Air when you know fucking with